Well, I'm joined now by careers coach Alice Stapleton, who can give us some of her tips on getting into work for the first time and also for those getting back into work after redundancy. And I'm guessing you've never been busier.
It is quite a busy time, yeah. I think a mixture of people struggling to find work, but then also people having the downtime to rethink what it is that they actually want to be doing as well.
A lot of anecdotal evidence out there that young people applying for work, maybe for the first time, the most demoralising side of it is when they don't get any response at all from those they've applied to. And maybe that's understandable given the number of letters that are going out and the fact that most people aren't in offices and things. But how do you persuade people not to let that get them down?
It is difficult. I suppose it is just understanding the situation and appreciating that, yeah, as you say, because of the sheer numbers, it's just not that possible at the moment. And all you can really do is think about what you might do differently next time, and actually maybe what you've learned from the experience, and reflect on it yourself if you can't get that feedback from the company.
OK, well, let's bring in the first question. This is from Carol Valentine. She's looking for work and she's from West Lothian in Scotland.
Hi, my name's Carol Valentine and I have currently been out of work during the pandemic. I've applied for over 250 jobs now, some of which weren't matched to my skill base. However, my question to you is, now that I've learnt that I need to only apply for jobs where my skills are a true match, if I've got all of the skills that the employer is looking for, how can I get through to the interview stage? Because I don't seem to be able to even get past sending my CV in, even though I've got all the criteria that the employer is looking for. Thanks.
That's a direct question. What would you say to her?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I suppose it's understanding that a lot of people will be applying who have the exact experience, the exact skill set. So I guess it might be thinking about, okay, how can you go the extra mile? How can you really stand out on that CV? So whether that's thinking about the added value that you might bring, your personal qualities, your uniqueness, really thinking about the results that you've gained in previous roles, but really just trying to think how you might stand out, and that might be about additional online courses or anything to really build up your CV, perhaps joining networking groups, memberships, associations, really populating that CV with some really great stuff that will set you apart from those other people that have exactly the same skill set and experience, perhaps.
And is it all about experience and that sort of detail on a CV? Because some people, particularly older people, are finding that a prospective employer looks at a CV where there's some experience and say, well, I can't afford that.
It is tricky. It does seem to be a fine balance of, okay, you need to have the right amount of experience and not too much experience. I suppose what the employer might be worrying about there is that maybe that person will feel unchallenged or bored and then might move on quickly or that sort of thing. So it does become a bit of a fine balance. But it may be that you apply for a role and it starts a conversation and perhaps they offer you something more senior if that's the case. But it can be useful just to get that conversation started with the company and going from there.
OK, Alice, we're getting a lot of questions. Let's just show you this question. This is from 24-year-old Natasha Torres-Coote.
The most common question that I get from our students at Baysgar School is, how would you recommend to get work experience, especially with COVID-19?
Sorry, that was Olivia. What would you say to her? Because we're getting a lot of questions along those lines.
Yeah, it's tough at the moment because obviously a lot of things aren't open and people aren't in offices and that sort of thing. I think the main thing you can do is really try and utilise your connections and your network, and start off there in terms of what might be feasible, and trying to be quite creative about how you might get that work experience. There has been a trend towards organisations that are collating virtual work experience opportunities, which is a really great thing to look into. And just because a lot of things are on Zoom at the moment, it doesn't mean that perhaps you can't organise some kind of shadowing, or you might be able to help with sort of freelance projects or ad hoc projects. But it's really about accessing your network and connections to find where those opportunities are, and as I said, being really creative about how you might build up that experience to start with.
Okay, well, now I can bring in Natasha Torres-Kut. That's quite a build-up I've given you already, so hopefully lots of potential employers are noticing you straight away. Natasha, what would your question be?
So I graduated in 2019, but I had very little experience in marketing itself. And so when I've been applying for jobs, I've been trying to go the extra mile, and sometimes even spending hours on an application, sometimes trying to pitch a project proposal that is in line with the brand image, or trying to design graphics for their social media, which is in line with the job description. And I've spent hours on these applications, and sometimes I don't even get a response back from these employers. And they're sometimes quite small employers as well, which you would expect to get responses from. And I don't seem to feel like the effort that I put in is really paying off in any sense, even if it's just for a response. So how would I be able to find the motivation to keep doing that, or should I just go back to conventional job application processes?
I really like what you're doing. It sounds like you're doing some really great stuff, and maybe even you can collate some of that onto your very own website that you can send a link to, and perhaps pick up a few additional projects through websites like Fiverr and those freelance opportunities, and really build out that portfolio. It sounds like you're doing some really great stuff. So it may actually just be about working on your resilience and your mindset and your motivation. There are loads of great podcasts and books and articles about that, and especially, you know, dealing with rejection as well. It's really tough, especially if you're not even being told why. That's even harder. So sometimes it is just kind of building up that grit and that resilience just to keep going. But it does sound like you're doing some really great stuff, so hopefully that will start to pay off soon.
Natasha, there is out there a potential employer who will remember in 10 years' time that they didn't even bother to reply to you, and they will be kicking themselves then. But in the meantime, I'm just wondering what the pandemic has done in terms of what that does for your self-esteem, because you don't have people to talk through things in the way that you used to. Has it been particularly tough?
Yeah, it definitely has been very tough. I feel very alone in the process, especially since, you know, you can't go outside, you can't meet people, you can't see consultants face to face. Scheduling online Zoom calls with consultants is very difficult because everyone's so busy trying to adjust to the new life. And I've definitely been through several challenging mental episodes with trying to stay on my feet and keep my head afloat. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in this position, but has been.
Well, what do your classmates say? They have similar stories, I guess.
Yeah, they definitely do. I've been speaking to a couple of my classmates who graduated in my master's marketing at the same time as me, and they are in very similar positions. And we are all in the same boat in the sense that we're all trying to take on free, unpaid work to try and get some experience and to try and give ourselves something to talk about on platforms such as LinkedIn. I've been working on Fiverr recently, selling articles for literally £5 because no one seems to want to pay anyone during the pandemic because money's so tight. So yeah, there's a lot of graduates in the same boat at the moment with regards to.
But Alice, that's the right thing to do, isn't it? Get yourself noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. Just doing all that you can to, you know, just build out your USP and have something unique to talk about on your CV and your interviews. And yeah, it is just really tough that, you know, straight out of university that it is expected that people have this experience and, you know, further education, and it's really difficult because I guess they've got the pick of the crop, and it's really doing what you can just to be in that top 5% of that group, which is tough and hard going, absolutely.